Warning: 8 signs you should cut ties even with family or friends. Stoic philosophy. Stop what you are doing for just one moment. If you have never subscribed to this channel, do it right now, because what you are about to hear is the kind of truth that most people spend decades running from. This is not a video about hate or bitterness. This is not a video that will teach you to be cold or heartless. This is a video about survival, about self-respect, about the ancient wisdom of the Stoics, who understood, more clearly than any modern psychologist, that the company you keep either builds you or breaks you. Subscribe now, and let us begin. Introduction. The hardest decision a person will ever make. There is a particular kind of pain that has no name in most languages. It is the pain of realizing that someone you love, someone you have shared your life with, your memories, your deepest vulnerabilities, is slowly destroying you. It is not the sharp, clean pain of a stranger's cruelty. It is something far more complicated. It is the slow ache of a bond that has become a wound. The Stoic philosophers understood this kind of pain with extraordinary clarity. They did not romanticize relationships simply because of shared blood or long history. They asked a harder, more important question: does this relationship make you more virtuous, more grounded, more capable of living a good life? Or does it drain you, diminish you, and pull you away from the person you were working so hard to become? Marcus Aurelius, who dealt with betrayal at the highest levels of Roman imperial power, including from people closest to him, wrote in Meditations, "The first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit. The second is to look things in the face and know them for what they are." Know them for what they are, not what you wish they were, not what they used to be, what they actually are, right now, in your life. This video is about that honest reckoning. It is about 8 clear, undeniable signs that a relationship, regardless of how long it has lasted or how much love was once present, has become something you must walk away from. Not with anger, not with a desire for revenge, but with the quiet, courageous dignity that Stoic philosophy demands of anyone serious about their own growth and peace. These signs apply to friendships. They apply to family members. They apply to anyone in your inner circle whose presence has begun to cost you more than it gives. This will not be comfortable, but it will be honest. And honesty, the Stoics always insisted, is where every meaningful change begins. Sign 1. They consistently undermine your growth and ambition. The first and perhaps most recognizable sign is this: every time you share a dream, set a goal, or take a bold step toward becoming a better version of yourself, they find a reason to discourage you. Not once, not occasionally, consistently, repeatedly, as though your growth threatens something in them that they cannot name but cannot ignore. Epictetus, who rose from slavery to become one of the most celebrated minds in the ancient world, understood this deeply. He knew what it meant to have your ambitions dismissed, your worth questioned, your potential denied by the very people who were supposed to support you. And his response was not resentment, it was clarity. He taught his students to guard their aspirations with the same ferocity with which a soldier guards a fortress. He said, "Guard your own good in all that you do, and as regards everything else take what is given, and only insist on what you need most." What you need most is belief. Progress, momentum, and if someone in your life is consistently stealing those things from you, dismissing your ideas, laughing at your ambitions, reminding you of your past failures every time you try to move forward, they are not being realistic. They are being toxic. The Stoics were careful to distinguish between honest criticism, which sharpens you, and habitual discouragement, which corrodes you. A true friend challenges your thinking to make it stronger. A toxic presence challenges your spirit to make it smaller. If the people closest to you respond to your growth with sarcasm, with doubt, with that particular kind of casual cruelty that masquerades as just being honest, pay attention. That is not love. That is fear wearing love's clothing. And you cannot afford to build your future in a room where the ceiling keeps being lowered every time you try to stand up straight. Sign 2. The relationship is built entirely on manipulation and guilt. Healthy relationships are built on honesty, mutual respect, and genuine care. Toxic relationships are built on something very different: guilt, obligation, and the constant unspoken threat that your love will be withdrawn if you fail to comply. If you find yourself regularly doing things not because you genuinely want to, but because you fear the consequence of refusing, that is not a relationship. That is a hostage situation. Seneca wrote with striking precision about the nature of false obligations: we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And nothing proves this more clearly than the fear of disappointing a manipulative person. The dread of their reaction, the anticipation of their silence, the anxiety about their judgment, all of it exists primarily in your imagination, constructed and maintained by years of conditioning. They have trained you to be afraid of your own boundaries. Manipulation in close relationships often comes disguised as love. It sounds like, "After everything I've done for you." It sounds like, "If you really cared about this family, you would." It sounds like, "I'm only saying this because I love you." These phrases are designed to collapse your sense of self and replace it with a sense of permanent debt, a debt that, conveniently, can never quite be fully repaid. The Stoic response to manipulation is not aggression. It is the calm, clear reassertion of your own sovereignty. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." Self-respect is not a luxury. It is the foundation of a life well lived. The moment you begin sacrificing your self-respect to manage someone else's emotions, you have begun to disappear. And the person who disappears cannot manifest, cannot create, cannot love, and cannot lead. They can only comply. Sign 3. They celebrate your failures more than your successes. Pay very close attention to how people respond when things go wrong for you, and how they respond when things go right. This asymmetry will tell you everything you need to know about someone's true feelings toward you. There is a word in German, Schadenfreude, that describes the pleasure some people take in the misfortune of others. The ancient Stoics, though they did not use that word, understood the phenomenon perfectly. They recognized that envy is one of the most destructive forces in human social life, and that it often hides in the people closest to us because those are the people who can most clearly see the gap between where you are and where they are. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it." He was speaking of his own anger, but the same logic applies to those around you. When someone is chronically envious of you, the anger and resentment they feel about your success is almost always disproportionate to anything you have actually done. You did not cause their emptiness. But your fullness reminds them of it, and rather than using that reminder as motivation, they direct it at you as resentment. Watch carefully. When you fail, do they seem relieved? When you succeed, does the celebration feel thin? A single sentence of congratulation followed immediately by doubt, qualification, or redirection to your shortcomings. Do they remember and reference your failures with remarkable clarity while remaining oddly vague about your achievements? These are not accidents. These are signals. Someone who genuinely loves you wants your success as much as their own. Someone who secretly resents you needs your failure to feel safe in their own skin. Sign 4. There is zero respect for your boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They are not acts of hostility or coldness. They are the clearly communicated terms of how you are willing to be treated, the basic architecture of a self-respecting life. And the Stoics, long before the language of modern psychology, understood that the person who cannot hold a boundary cannot hold their own mind. Epictetus taught his students to be absolutely clear about what they would and would not accept in their lives. He said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." In other words, decide who you are, what you stand for, what you will tolerate, and then act in alignment with that decision without apology and without negotiation. When you set a boundary with a healthy person, they may not like it, but they respect it. They might express disappointment. They might even push back once. But ultimately, they honor your right to define your own limits. A toxic person responds to your boundaries very differently. They argue. They negotiate. They make you feel guilty. They wait until you seem vulnerable and then act as though the boundary was never set. Or they comply outwardly while punishing you in subtle ways, through coldness, passive aggression, or the withdrawal of warmth. The repeated violation of your boundaries is not a misunderstanding. It is a message. It is the other person telling you, clearly and consistently, that your needs do not register as important to them. That your comfort is secondary to their desires. That the relationship exists on their terms, or not at all. A Stoic would hear that message clearly, without drama, without excessive emotion, and respond not with a lecture but with a decision. Because some messages deserve not a reply but a consequence. Midpoint. Breathe and subscribe. We are at the heart of this video, and I want to pause here with intention. If what you are hearing is resonating with something deep inside you, if you are thinking of someone as we go through these signs, then you are exactly who this channel exists for. We create content like this to give you the philosophical tools to navigate life's hardest decisions with wisdom and dignity. If you have not yet subscribed, please do it right now. Share this video with someone who needs permission to protect their own peace. And keep watching, because the next 4 signs are the ones most people never talk about openly. Sign 5. They drain your energy every single time without exception. Every relationship involves an exchange of energy. That is simply the nature of human connection. Sometimes you carry someone, sometimes they carry you. That is the natural rhythm of genuine relationship, and it is not a problem. The problem arises when the exchange is never reciprocal. When one person is always the well, and the other is always drawing from it, and the well is never replenished. Seneca, in his extraordinary letters to Lucilius, wrote, "Associate with those who are likely to make you better. Welcome those who you are capable of making better." 2 directions of growth. 2 people in motion. That is what a healthy relationship looks like. Not 2 people frozen in their dysfunction, with one feeding the other's stagnation indefinitely. You know this person. You feel it the moment you see their name on your phone screen. A heaviness arrives before you have even spoken a word. After every conversation, every visit, every interaction, you feel emptied in a way that sleep does not fully restore. You find yourself carefully managing what you share because you know it will either be dismissed, redirected to their own problems, or used against you later. This is not friendship. This is emotional labor with no return. The Stoics prized their energy as sacred, not in a selfish sense, but in the sense that their mental and emotional resources were the raw material for everything they wanted to create, contribute, and become. Wasting those resources on a relationship that consistently leaves you depleted is not loyalty. It is self-abandonment, and the Stoics had absolutely no patience for self-abandonment dressed up as virtue. Sign 6. They are chronically dishonest with you. Truth was, for the Stoics, not simply a moral preference. It was the foundation of reality itself. Without truth, there is no genuine understanding. Without understanding, there is no real connection. And without real connection, there is no relationship, only the performance of one. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth, by which no one was ever truly harmed." It is the person who continues in his self-deception and ignorance who is harmed. He valued truth so completely that he was willing to be corrected. He welcomed it because he understood that a false picture of reality, no matter how comfortable, leads inevitably to disaster. Now apply that to your relationships. If the person you are close to lies to you habitually, about small things, about large things, about their own character, about their intentions, they are denying you the basic gift of reality. They are making it impossible for you to make sound decisions about your own life, because the information you are working with is corrupted. Chronic dishonesty in a close relationship is profoundly disrespectful. It says, "I do not trust you with the truth. I do not believe you can handle reality. Or worse, I do not care enough about your well-being to give you what you need to navigate your life clearly." Any of those messages, once received and understood, should change the way you relate to that person permanently. The Stoics built their entire philosophy on clear seeing. You cannot see clearly through a constant fog of other people's deceptions. Sign 7. The relationship pulls you toward your worst self. This sign is perhaps the most spiritually important of all, because it speaks not just to your comfort or your energy but to your very character. The Stoics believed that the highest purpose of any relationship, friendship in particular, was mutual elevation. Not mutual comfort, not mutual entertainment. Mutual growth toward virtue. Seneca wrote one of the most powerful sentences in all philosophical literature on this subject: "Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future." Not your ambitions, not your intentions, your friends. Because the people you spend the most time with do not merely influence your mood, they shape your standards, your vocabulary, your habits of thought, your tolerance for mediocrity, and your definition of what is normal. If there is someone in your life, a family member, a longtime friend, a romantic partner, whose presence consistently brings out the worst version of you, that is a sign you cannot afford to ignore. You become more negative around them, more petty, more dishonest, more reckless, more willing to compromise on values that, in other company or in solitude, you hold clearly and confidently. This does not make you weak. It makes you human. We are all, to a profound degree, shaped by our social environments. The question is whether you are being shaped consciously, toward the person you want to become, or unconsciously, toward a diminished version of yourself that fits more comfortably into someone else's limited world. Marcus Aurelius understood this. He spent decades fighting the pull of court politics, imperial corruption, and the low standards of people around him. His journals were his daily recommitment to his own highest standards. What is yours? Sign 8. They have shown you, repeatedly, that they do not value you. This is the final sign, and in some ways it is the simplest, though it is the one people resist accepting the longest. When someone shows you who they are, Marcus Aurelius would say, believe the evidence of your own experience over the story you tell yourself about who they could be. Actions are truth. Everything else is narrative. When someone repeatedly cancels on you without genuine remorse, when they take you for granted until they need something, when they speak about you with disrespect behind your back while performing warmth to your face, when they have had every opportunity to show up for you and chosen not to, they have given you information. Precise, unambiguous, repeated information about your place in their priorities. Epictetus taught, people are not disturbed by the things that happen, but by their opinions about the things. And nowhere is this more painfully true than in relationships where we insist on holding an opinion. They love me, they care, they will change, that the evidence of lived experience has repeatedly contradicted. The disturbance you feel is not from their behavior. It is from the gap between what you know and what you refuse to accept. Valuing yourself is not arrogance. It is the fundamental Stoic requirement for a well-lived life. When you truly value yourself, when you understand your own worth not as a matter of ego but as a matter of honest self-knowledge, you naturally become unwilling to remain in situations that consistently communicate the opposite. Not with drama, not with ultimatums or performances of hurt, simply with a quiet, clear, final understanding that you deserve better. And that choosing better is not cruelty. It is wisdom, the Stoic way of cutting ties, how to do it with dignity. Now here is what separates a Stoic response from a reactive one, and it is critically important. The Stoics did not advocate for drama. They did not advocate for revenge, for public declarations of grievance, for the satisfaction of letting someone know exactly how much they hurt you. They advocated for something far more powerful, graceful, resolute withdrawal. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." The same logic applies here. Waste no more time arguing about whether this relationship is toxic, explaining your pain to someone who has already demonstrated they don't value it, or seeking acknowledgement from someone who has made a habit of withholding it. Simply be someone who respects themselves enough to choose differently. Cutting ties does not always mean a dramatic confrontation. Sometimes it means a gradual, dignified withdrawal. Fewer calls, less availability, a natural cooling of investment. Sometimes it means a single, calm, clear conversation. I value what we had. I don't think this relationship is serving either of us well anymore. I wish you well. No accusations, no historical inventory of wrongs, no emotional performance, just clarity. And sometimes, with family especially, it means not a complete severance but a careful restructuring. Limiting the time, limiting the depth of what you share. Protecting your inner world from someone who has not demonstrated they can be trusted with it. The Stoics understood that you can love someone and still choose not to be damaged by them. These two things are not contradictory. They are, in fact, the most mature form of love available. Seneca wrote, "One of the most beautiful qualities of true friendship is to understand and to be understood." When mutual understanding is permanently absent, when the attempts to understand and be understood have been made sincerely and repeatedly and have produced nothing, then what you have is not friendship. Honoring that truth, even when it is painful, is the Stoic path. What happens when you walk away? The transformation you cannot predict. There is something almost magical, though the Stoics would use the word rational, that happens to a person who finally releases a relationship that has been draining them. The change is immediate and profound. People describe it as breathing for the first time, as a weight lifting from their shoulders that they had been carrying so long they had stopped noticing how heavy it was. Your clarity returns. The mental fog that you may have attributed to stress or tiredness, the fog that made every decision harder, every creative effort more labored, lifts. You discover that a significant portion of your daily mental energy was being consumed by managing this relationship, by the anticipation of the next difficult interaction, by the background hum of unresolved tension, by the constant small work of protecting yourself without fully acknowledging that you were protecting yourself. Your standards rise. When you remove the presence that was normalizing low expectations, disrespect, and dishonesty, those things stop feeling normal. You begin to wonder how you tolerated them for so long. And that wonder is not self-criticism, it is growth. It is the recalibration of a compass that had been pulled off course by a nearby magnet. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Receive without pride, relinquish without struggle." The relinquishing, the letting go of what no longer serves your highest self, is not defeat. It is not giving up, it is the act of someone who has taken their own becoming seriously enough to stop funding what works against it. And in that act, something new becomes possible, something that could not grow in the shadow of what you have finally chosen to release. A word on forgiveness, the Stoic view. It is essential to address this, because many people confuse cutting ties with holding on to hatred, and the Stoics would be the first to tell you that hatred is far more destructive to the person who holds it than to the person it is directed at. Cutting ties is not revenge. It is not a punishment. It is simply a choice about your future. Forgiveness, in the Stoic sense, is not about excusing behavior. It is not about pretending that what happened was acceptable. It is about releasing the weight of resentment from your own shoulders, not for their benefit, but for yours. Because as long as you carry bitterness toward someone, they continue to occupy space in your mind that could be used for something far more valuable. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injustice. Not to punish them, not to expose them, not to destroy them, to be different. To be better, to take the experience of being treated poorly and use it as material for becoming someone who treats others, and themselves, with greater wisdom and greater dignity." You can forgive someone completely, release all resentment toward them, genuinely wish them well, and still choose never to allow them back into your inner circle. These are not contradictory positions. They are, in fact, the most psychologically sophisticated and spiritually evolved response available. The Stoics knew this. They lived this, and the peace it produces is unlike anything a revenge fantasy could ever deliver. Building the relationships that deserve you. Cutting ties is only one side of the equation. The other side, equally important, often neglected, is building the relationships that are worthy of you. Because the goal of Stoic philosophy was never isolation. It was never the cold, friendless life of someone who has given up on human connection. The goal was selective connection. Deep, honest, mutual, growth-oriented relationships with people who challenge you to be better and who are genuinely made better by knowing you. Seneca wrote to Lucilius with extraordinary warmth and depth. Their correspondence is one of the great records of genuine philosophical friendship in human history. He wrote, "Withdraw into yourself as much as you can. Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. The process is mutual, for men learn while they teach." This is the vision, not fewer relationships, but truer ones. Not the performance of connection, but the substance of it, not the comfort of familiarity, but the electricity of genuine mutual growth. When you begin to hold this standard, when you become willing to feel the temporary loneliness of cutting away what is false in order to make space for what is real, something extraordinary happens. The right people begin to appear, not magically, but naturally, because you have become someone who is no longer sending confusing signals. You are no longer available for dynamics of manipulation and disrespect, so those people naturally stop orbiting you. And you are fully present, genuinely open, and radiating the energy of someone who knows their own worth. And that attracts, like a beacon, the people who are ready for the same quality of connection you are now prepared to offer. The courage this requires. Let us not be naive about how difficult this is. The Stoics were philosophers, yes, but they were also deeply human, and they never pretended that living philosophically was easy. Marcus Aurelius was surrounded by people he could not fully trust and yet had to govern daily. Seneca was entangled in political relationships that ultimately cost him his life. Epictetus built his entire philosophy in the shadow of having had no control over the most basic aspects of his existence. They knew that doing the right thing, even when the right thing is choosing yourself, requires enormous courage. Especially when the person you are walking away from is a parent, a sibling, a lifelong friend. The social pressure to maintain those bonds regardless of their cost is immense. The voice that says, "But they're family," or, "But we've been friends for 20 years, is not just external. It is deeply internal, woven into your identity, your history, your sense of loyalty and belonging. The Stoics would honor that voice. They would not dismiss it as weakness. But they would also ask you to weigh it against another voice, the one that knows, clearly and honestly, what this relationship is actually doing to your life. The one that has tried, and tried, and tried again, and has finally arrived at the threshold of a harder truth. Epictetus said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." The grief of letting go is real, fully real. Do not rush through it or suppress it, but on the other side of that grief is something the Stoics held as the highest possible human achievement: peace. Deep, earned, unshakable peace with yourself and the choices you have made in full alignment with your values. That peace is worth every moment of difficulty the path to it requires. And no one, no relationship, no shared history, no social pressure, no voice of guilt, should have the power to keep you from it closing, the decision that changes everything. Every life has a turning point, a moment when you finally stop negotiating with things that are diminishing you. A moment when you look honestly at the evidence of your own experience and choose to honor what you see rather than the story you've been telling yourself to make the discomfort manageable. This video is not asking you to be hard. It is asking you to be honest. It is asking you to take the Stoic practice of clear seeing and apply it to the places in your life where, perhaps, you have been choosing comfortable blindness over liberating truth. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. You are not obligated to shrink your life, silence your ambitions, or surrender your peace to maintain a connection that has long since stopped serving either person well. You have one life, this one. The Stoics were insistent about that. One life, finite, precious, irreplaceable. How much of it will you spend being less than you are, surrounded by people who need you to stay small? And how much of it will you spend in the company of your own highest self, and the people worthy of that person? The decision is yours. It has always been yours. And the Stoics, across 2,000 years of timeless wisdom, are standing behind you today, urging you toward the only choice that was ever truly available to someone who has decided to live with full intention, full dignity, and full courage. Choose yourself, not out of selfishness, out of wisdom, out of the deep, ancient understanding that the most important relationship you will ever tend is the one you have with your own soul. If this video reached something inside you, if it gave you clarity on a situation you have been struggling with, or the courage to make a decision you have been avoiding, then this is your channel. Subscribe right now if you haven't already. This is the community of people who are serious about their growth, serious about their peace, and serious about building a life that reflects their true worth. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these 8 signs resonated with you most. I read every single comment, and your words matter to this community. You deserve relationships that make you better. You deserve peace that is not conditional. And you deserve a life that reflects the extraordinary person you are working every day to become. Stay stoic, stay grounded, and never stop choosing yourself.